words because I'm always afraid that they don't hear me enough. Okay,
don't worry.
I'm good.
We hear you.
I'm good.
If there's any feedback that we get, there's no problem hearing you.
Yeah.
Thank God. That's what I want to hear, Jay. Thank you. Like I listen to just quickly. I listen to sports radio sometimes on the way to work. So the callers one day calls Jay from Rhode Island. You're on.
Oh, that's
I go, Jay. Jay's calling from. Okay, Jay's calling. Then this high shrilled voice. I said, nah, it's not Jay. No. Yeah, with a big Boston accent. Man, there's something in the wing. That's not Jay. It's not Jay.
He didn't have my pipes.
No, I didn't. No. But it was funny hearing Jay from Rhode Island. You're on next.
So I was telling ChayaLeah that. Have you heard about the show House of David on Amazon?
No.
Yeah. Oh. I didn't tell you about it yet.
So I guess I get the honor.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
They're doing.
Is it about us?
So it's about King David, and it's an 8-part series, and it goes from basically him being revealed as the king, and then I suspect it's probably just going to go through to him slaying Goliath. Mm-hmm. I suspect that's going to happen. But I gotta say, 3 episodes are out right now. It's really good. And I think it's pretty historically accurate. It seems like.
Yeah. I watched I watched the first episode, and then I'm like 20 minutes into the second episode, and it opens up with such an interesting thing. And the second episode opens up with King David and his mom. He's a little kid. His mom taking him to do Birchas HaChama. And it describes, like she says, we only get to see this once every 28 years. Correct. And we're so lucky. The funny thing is, if you would have shown this to me 10 years ago, I'd be like, what? That is made up. I've never heard of that. But we had Birchas HaChama, a few years, maybe 10 years ago. Well, and we got to say a special blessing on the son.
Yeah.
That you only get to do every 28 years. So I was like, that's true. That's real.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. See, you already learned something.
And there's
81.
Sorry.
I think it was 1981.
Yeah.
Then it was 81, 91, 2000, 2009.
Oh, is that how long ago it was?
I think it was 2000. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay.
2009, then 2019, 29. So it's going to be in 38.
Yeah.
Right.
It's very rare.
2038.
It's a cool little thing. And the whole community got very excited about it. And it was a big deal.
Interesting.
And yeah.
And there's a scene where Jonathan raps tefillin. I think that's what they're doing. It doesn't look like our tefillin today.
Right.
But it's like a very small scroll he puts on his arm, and he has the leather wraps. So it's I was very concerned about watching it, about
you could go with a number of different
what the hell they're going to do with the story, but it seems really good. We should talk about it.
Yeah, well, I'll watch it, but I looked it up after, and it's Christian producers. And,
that's why.
Yeah, they're trying to keep it as close to the biblical sources as possible. And what I like about it, and then we should get to our topic for today, but actually I have one more thing before then. But what I like about it is there's a lot of Hebrew. There's they have all of the what sometimes it will say 14 years later, like it will say it in Hebrew first, and then it will switch to English. So I don't know, it's cool. But I want to say one thing before we jump into Purim. Today is 1 year since we released our first episode. So
is it really?
What?
Yes.
What? Yes. Congratulations to us.
And I know that because my Facebook memories popped up in the morning, and it was my post saying first episode of edJEWcation. And then I wrote something like, give my father some time to get used to podcasting. We'll get him there eventually or whatever. Sorry that I made fun of you right off the bat. But anyway.
I think we should give ourselves an award like Hollywood does.
Yeah, we should.
And the best podcaster for edJEWcation is me. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank my co-hosts Jay and ChayaLeah for making this happen. I couldn't have done it without them. Of course, Dan.
I like how you think you are winning the Oscar if any of us win.
What?
Dan will win for editing.
Dan is editing, producing, original song.
Well, happy edJEWcation birthday.
Yes.
Let's go.
Exactly. Okay. So
sorry. One other thing real quick.
Oh my God.
Rabbi, it was just your birthday, right?
Yes, it was.
That is true.
English, secular birthday.
Right.
My Hebrew birthday is coming up after Purim. So secular birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, my birthday is 3, 4, 5, 6. If you want to remember that. 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
I've known you for 44 years and I never knew that. That's
you see
hilarious.
that? You see that?
But next year will be a big we're gonna get you a wheelchair.
Yeah,
there's all sorts of birthdays today. Education.
Yeah.
Rabbi.
It's a good month. It's a good month.
Absolutely. All right. So let's go.
On to our topic. So we are going to jump right into the holiday of Purim, which we'll be celebrating. We're recording this on Friday. I don't know when it will be released, but Purim is coming up this coming Friday. It's always celebrated on the 14th day of the month of Adar. This year that falls out on Friday, March 14th. But when you listen to this in 5 years, it doesn't matter what the English date is. Look up and make sure you know what date actually Purim is falling out on. It is probably the most fun Jewish holiday. It's an incredible story. Lots of fun community gatherings. And if you live in an Orthodox community, it is crazy, busy, fun, exhausting day. But there's a lot to share, and we should jump in maybe starting with the story of Purim, and then we can talk about the particular observances and laws around it. Is that good? Are you guys on board with that?
It works. Let's do
It
it.
works for me.
So I'll start by just throwing a question out to you. The Book of Esther, which chronicles the story of Purim, is the last book that was canonized into the Torah, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So did all Jews have this sort? Like, did all Jews celebrate Purim?
It's the last book, but it's not chronologically the last episode.
Oh, okay.
It's the book that they debated the most, but it's not chronologically because we have Ezra and Nehemiah that come back for the Second Commonwealth.
Right.
Haggai and so there's
okay. So not chronologically, but
chronologically not the last.
Right. Okay. Good clarification.
Yes.
So if you were going to tell the story of Purim in a less than 10-minute version, how would you go about telling that story?
I mean, it's one of the more interesting books in the Bible. And at number 1, it doesn't mention God's name at all.
Right.
God's name is not mentioned once in this whole story of Purim. I mean, it takes place while the Jews were exiled in the Persian Empire. This happened through Nebuchadnezzar in the year 586. The first temple was destroyed, and many of the Jews were exiled going east, ending up whether they were in Babylon and then even further out into Persia, and so on and so forth. So they later come back and rebuild the temple in the year 516. So the story of Purim takes place between the destruction of the first temple and the building of the second temple. The king at the time of Persia then was Ahasuerus, who, if you want to know exactly who he was in the secular Persian king row, at the Xerxes, I think was his name, and I think there's a couple of them, but we're going to refer to him as Ahasuerus today. And he ruled over 127 provinces, of which the vast, vast majority were under his dominion. The story opens up with him throwing a big party. Well, we don't know why he's throwing this big party, but if you look into the commentaries, it was a few years where he was already in power, and according to him, his calculations that the Jews would never go back because he had misread the 70-year prophecy, so he thought it had already passed, which it hadn't passed, but nonetheless, whatever was the reason, is he throws this huge party, for his whole kingdom, and then a special party for Shushan. And while the guy is drunk and having a good time, he calls for his wife Vashti, the queen, to come and to participate in the party. She refuses. And do you want to get into why she refuses?
She had many pimples.
She had many pimples, and she grew a tail, it tells us.
We'll get back
whatever
to that.
It is.
We'll go back to that.
We'll go back to Vashti. Anyway, she refuses to come. His advisors say to him, this is an egregious stand against the king. He has to do something powerful and send a message that, a man is the boss of his own home. So he has the queen hung, and she's gone. Well, the next chapter opens up. He's kind of sober, and he just remembers what he just did, that he killed the queen, and he has no queen. So he calls for a beauty contest, and the most beautiful women come and they parade in front of him, and he goes through in great detail of the process that they go through. Anyways, long story short, you want to do it less than 10 minutes. He picks Esther, a Jewish girl that's the cousin of Mordechai, who came with the exile, as I mentioned before, from Israel, and they were living now in Shushan. And Mordechai tells Esther, don't tell him that you're Jewish. And Esther goes there to the palace, and lo and behold, miraculously, Esther is chosen as the queen, most beautiful woman in the land of Persia. Okay, great. Good news.
Just a sidebar.
Yes.
It says a lot that my mother never let me dress up as Esther for Purim. I always had to be one of the rejected girls.
Why is that?
I just want to throw that out there.
Is that why you were in therapy for all those years?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, that is quite something.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyways, can we get back to the story?
Yes.
It's amazing how everything is you. I mean, I don't get it. We're talking about Esther of thousands of years ago. Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about you. I mean, anything else? Okay, anything else about you you'd like to mention?
To say, but keep going.
Oh, wow. Okay, can we continue with the story?
Yes.
Okay,
it's only been 40 some odd years, Rabbi. I mean, the fact you're not used to this yet that's really your issue.
And I'm not counting that this disruption is 10 minutes. Okay, I'm not counting that in the 10-minute storytelling. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Ahead. Sorry.
So here we go. Oh, where was I? Did I tell you about the part where Vashti doesn't want to come down?
Oh my God.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So she's dead. There. Esther's in. She's sitting with the crown on her head. Sidebar story. Two of Achashverosh's soldiers, the sergeants, officers plan to kill him. Bigson and Zeresh, and Mordechai, the cousin of Esther, hears this, tells her the plot. They find them, they hang them, and it's recorded in the sacred books of remembrances for the king. Okay. Then the next chapter opens up very interestingly. There's a guy called Haman. We've never heard about this guy. We don't know about this guy. Whatever it is, Haman now gets appointed to be prime minister, the second man in charge in Persia. We know he's an egotistical maniac. Of course, he becomes now our antagonist, our enemy. Everywhere he goes, people bow to him. They're afraid of him, except for one man. Mordechai doesn't bow to him and doesn't kowtow to him and doesn't show him any extra respect. This infuriates Haman. So instead of taking out Mordechai, he decides he's just going to, for whatever reason, he's going to take out the Jews. It's not so easy. He goes to Achashverosh. He starts telling them there's a people, they're scattered, their laws are not our laws, their language is not our language. Who needs them? And he gives Achashverosh 10,000 silver coins in order to be able to kill all the Jews. Achashverosh acquiesces, and Haman sets a plan that he's going to, and he pulls out a lottery on which day comes out on the 14th day of the month of Adar, that he is going to, kill all the Jews. And he puts out a proclamation that get ready, or it was, I think, the 13th or 14th of Adar, and he threw out a proclamation that we are going to kill, we're killing all the Jews on that day. Anyways, Mordechai finds out about it, and he's terrified, and he changes his clothes to sackcloth, and he sits outside the kingdom, the gates of the palace, to make sure that Esther's okay, and he sends a message to Esther. She should go and plead for the king. Esther at first is afraid. She says, I haven't been called to the king in a number of days, and no one walks in on him like this. So Mordechai sends her back a sharp rebuke. He says, don't think that you're going to be saved just because you're sitting in the palace, but you know what? You have to go. This is why you were chosen to be the queen. And if you don't do it, God will find someone else, but this is your destiny. So she goes there and she stands there, and all of a sudden the king is overwhelmed with love for her. Oh, he loves her so much. And he says, what do you want, Esther? So Esther says, you know what? We haven't had really an intimate dinner. We haven't talked. So I'd like to invite you to a dinner with me, you, and Haman, just us three. Achashverosh says, great, good idea, like it. He tells Haman comes to the first dinner. Everybody is just having a fun time at this dinner. Haman thinks that, he's on top of the game. Nothing could go wrong. And he goes out, but then he sees Mordechai and he's just infuriated. So one of his advisors tells him, why don't you build a gallows 50 cubits high and you'll hang Mordechai on it? And he does that. He builds the gallows. Anyways, that night, That night, for whatever reason, I mean, maybe she served Chinese food or Thai food. I mean, something very spicy she definitely served for that dinner. He couldn't sleep, her husband. And he calls for the royal caller readers of the Sefer HaZachronos of the just put me to sleep, and read me some stories to put me to sleep. They read him the story of Mordechai saving his life. He says, did we reward him? They say no. He goes, okay, how should we reward him? Anyways, he goes on his balcony. Haman is coming to tell him to kill Mordechai. He goes out there. He says, who's there? Haman is, that's me. Oh, good. Perfect timing, Haman. Because I got to ask you a very serious question. He says, there's a guy here in the kingdom that I'm especially grateful to. And what would you do to a guy like this? Haman, of course, being the narcissist that he is, thinks that, of course, Achashverosh is talking about him. He'd say he put him on the royal horse with the royal garments and he'd have someone lead him around town saying, look, this is what the king does to whoever finds favor in his eyes. Achashverosh loves the idea and says, Haman, I want you to go and do this to Mordechai. Very bad reversal of luck at that moment. And and he says, don't miss anything that you told me. Get him on the royal thing. Anyways, of course, Haman is walking around and he's parading Mordechai through the streets of Shushan, talking about how great Mordechai is. When his family sees something, a commotion, they don't know what's going on. They think Haman is on the horse and Mordechai is leading him, so they dump their garbage on Haman's head. I mean, that's another one of the sidebar stories. Because
I thought that was a whole chapter.
That's a sidebar story. Anyways, Esther goes back to Achashverosh. She says, what would you like? He says, we had such a good time. The first dinner, I'd like to have another dinner. He says, of course. Anyways, this time Haman is rushed to the palace because now he's full of garbage. And, anyways, make a long story short, at the second banquet, Achashverosh turns to Esther and says, what can I do for you, Esther? I'll give you half of the kingdom. She says, there's a man who's trying to wipe us out. His name is, and who is it? His name is Haman. Achashverosh gets up. He's very angry. He steps outside. Haman falls down on the floor to ask Esther's, forgiveness. Anyways, Charvaina is there, and Charvaina says, there's a gallows of 50 cubits. Let's hang Haman. So Achashverosh acquiesces. There's a lot of acquiescing going on there, with Achashverosh. And he hangs, Haman gets hung, and that's the end of Haman.
This is the first time Esther reveals that she's Jewish.
Yeah, that doesn't say, she just knows it. So now she said they're Jewish now. Right. Okay. And Achashverosh said, I should have known by your kvetching, but I didn't know. Okay. I didn't pick up the cues. Wow. All right. The palace is too hot, the palace is too cold, my room is not good enough. What kind of blanket is this? I should have figured that out immediately. But nonetheless, hilarious. Okay, we'll just keep going. Anyways, now he says, now we got a problem, Esther says, because there's a decree out there, so the king gives permission for the Jews to defend themselves. Well, they form an army and they fight and they're victorious and they celebrate their victory on the 14th day of Adar, which is a great salvation from the Almighty. And they decree now give presents to each other and alms to the poor, and everybody is happy. And the queen and the king write these down in the chronicles of Persia, and they write it a letter and they send it all over the Jewish communities. And on this day, on the 14th day, we have a very special holiday called Purim, and Purim means the lottery. So in memory of the lottery that Haman did, we're going to celebrate this Purim. And one more day for Shushan, because in Shushan they fought one extra day. So in Shushan they decreed that not only the 14th but the 15th should also be a holiday. So that became a holiday. It's called Shushan Purim, where all ancient cities that were walled like Jericho and Jerusalem celebrate that Purim as well. And that was it. And so every year on the 14th day, we read the story of the Megillah over and over again to tell us about the miracle that happened to the Jewish people through Mordechai and through Esther, and we're happy. And every time we read the Megillah and we mention Haman's name, we boo, and that's Purim, and we get dressed up, and then we'll talk about some other customs that we do.
Wow.
And that is the story of Purim in a nutshell. In a nutshell.
Good.
That was impressive. I don't think you took a breath during that that entire time. That was impressive.
You should hear him read. You should hear him read the real Megillah in Hebrew, and you can do that pretty fast as well, which is astonishing.
It's like those.
I've been doing a number of years already, so it's
like those free diving pearl divers. that can hold their breath for like 10 minutes underwater. They've got nothing on the rabbi reading Esther.
Yeah.
So that's the story.
So let Jay ask some questions. And then
okay.
So do we want to talk about the customs, the customs for the holiday, or where do you want to?
So there is basically a couple of different rules, more than customs. There's rules that we need to do on Purim to accomplish fulfilling the mitzvah of Purim. Number one is hearing the Megillah 2 times, both in the evening and in the morning, because of the importance of the story. And there were going to be people that would not be able to hear at night, and then there would be people not be able to hear. So the rabbis instituted both the evening and the morning readings, of the Megillah. There's a special little section in the Amidah, in the prayer service, that we add Al Hanisim, to add that. There's also a mitzvah to make a feast, literally to get your family together and have a wonderful, wonderful meal, starting with challah and washing and wine and drinking, and we'll get to the drinking in a moment, to have a feast. Then there's also important to send what we call shalach manas, gifts to each other, food items, gifts of food to each other around the community. And probably the most important of all is what we call matanas levyonim, give charity to the poor, to make sure that everybody in town has enough to celebrate Purim, and give them money, give them whatever they need to do that. So if you do those 4 things, listen to the Megillah, have a meal, send presents, give food presents to your friends, and alms to the poor, you have fulfilled the mitzvah of Purim.
And we should just clarify that Purim is not a holiday that we don't use technology, or we can drive, we can use our phones. So it's a bit of an interesting holiday, because even though we're doing a lot of ritual and we're going to synagogue and we're there, but it's not biblical. It's not biblical. It's not right. So
there's no prohibition.
That's why we don't have the prohibition.
It's like Hanukkah.
Right.
Like
Hanukkah.
Right. So why on this holiday is the book read twice? Because is there any other holiday where the book's read twice? So why is this one?
Because of the importance of the story, that instituted a double reading, because they wanted everyone to hear this. It's an incredible story, and they wanted to make sure that the people that won't be able to hear it during the day and night, and goes at night. And then, of course, as it developed, they said, well, just listen to it twice. Once in the morning, once in the evening. And that's become the rule.
It's really interesting because it's one of the stories that is so embedded in our memory and our minds. It's such a part of our identity, I feel. I can't speak for all Jews. I don't know. I just know, as an Orthodox Jew, the way I was raised, the way I was taught the story, there's almost no part of Judaism that or I shouldn't say no part of Judaism, but the way I relate to the current moment in history, whatever time of my life I've been in, that I haven't related it to Purim, right? Like, I'll give you a silly example, but here we go. When Ivanka and Jared Kushner, right, came into the White House during the first Trump administration, I was like, oh, this is so reminiscent of like a Queen Esther type of figure, like if Trump is the Achashverosh and I don't know, Steve Bannon is Haman or whatever, however you want to like configure the people in the White House. Like, it's just, the story is so much a part of our lore. I guess lore is not the right word, but part of who we are. The same way that like an American kid, has the Disney stories or whatever movie, the cartoons they grew up with. This is such a central story for us. Don't you feel like?
Totally.
Do you agree?
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the reason why it was debated to be put into the canon is because, first of all, there's a lot of issues with this story. Number one, God doesn't get mentioned once.
Right.
Okay, that's it. God. So it's okay. So Kabbalistically, every time it mentions the word Hamelech, the king, refers to God. And we see, of course, all divine providence, where Mordechai's there at the right time listening to this. And then Mordechai's there at the right time at the palace. And, and then Esther is elevated to the queen. What are the chances? But it's controversial because Esther is Jewish, Achashverosh is not.
Right.
Okay, so there's one issue over there. The other issue is God is not mentioned. There. The third issue is, why did this even happen? I mean, why? I mean, if God is a good God and a kind God, why all of a sudden does Haman come and pick on the Jews and want to kill all the Jews and put us into this terror for an entire year?
Right.
So the answer to that is that the Jews went to participate in Achashverosh's feast.
Right.
And and even though if you said it was kosher, it wasn't kosher. It could have been kosher, glatt kosher, half kosher, or I mean, who knows what kind of kosher it was there? But still, Mordechai had begged them, "Don't go because he's humiliating us." I mean, this is a fist that humiliate the Jews. He brought out the vessels that they stole from the temple, so this was a total humiliation of the Jews. But the Jews figured, we're going to go anyway. So you're going to go anyways. All right, okay. So God said, "I'm going to put a little fear into you." Okay, so. And that's why it was, but it's become so fantastically joyous.
Yeah.
The holiday was such a turnaround, even more than the Hanukkah story. Hanukkah story was, we fought a war. Here, no war was fought. I mean, there was a war that was fought afterwards, but already the victory of Haman being hung is already, it was hung. And, and we went out there and we won the war. We didn't lose anybody. It was, a great victory.
By the way, I mean, the fact that the version of Esther that we have in the Torah has no mention of God, I mean, that was a choice the rabbis made, because there is another version called Greek Esther, which was written by Jews in Israel. So it was a chronicle of the story written by the Jews for the people living in Egypt for whatever reason, in Alexandria, whatever. Right. And God is mentioned many times in that version. So the rabbis made
They made a choice to write this. Don't forget, this is also written to the Persians as well.
Right.
It's an interesting because Esther wanted to make sure that this story is told far and wide.
Right.
So there may have been one of the reasons why you left out the word God, because you're writing it not only for the Jewish people, you're also writing the story for everybody, the 127 lands, and so you want to make it as neutral as possible. I'm assuming that could be another reason why God is not mentioned in there. But of course, if you believe in divine providence, you see the hand of God. I mean, the fact that he couldn't sleep at night, and they read from the Book of Remembrances, and it's that story, and Haman's walking at precisely the same time towards the king. So so obviously God's hand is running this entire affair to do this. But it reads, if you read it, it reads like a political thriller. Right. There's deception, and there's intrigue. In the palace, there's death. There's a beauty contest. I mean, it reads literally like a political thriller.
But we were always taught the reason that Hashem's name is not in the Megillah is because we learn a lesson that God does miracles through nature,
of course,
through natural
absolutely
occurrences. And so we might think that we're in control of whatever's happening, whether it's political or war or whatever, and we don't see God's hand, right? Because we don't see God every day. Right. But really, God is behind the whole story, and everything is divine providence. So I don't know.
That's for sure. We were taught. I mean, look, one of the questions that people always ask is, we talk about Purim being the most joyous event. Like you had said, right, in the Jewish calendar, it's the most joyous event. According to the code of Jewish law, when Adar comes in, you have to increase in joy. Right. So commentaries have asked a very simple question. If you look in the Torah, which is biblical, it says that there's one holiday that's called Zman Simchaseinu. Right. What is that? Sukkot. Sukkot is our holiday of joy. We already have a holiday of joy. And then, number 2, we have the story of Pesach. Here comes Pesach. Miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle, open miracles. Right. Jews saved, got out of bondage. Jews come to the Red Sea, split the Red Sea. No, that not good enough. So we have Sukkot as Man Simchaseinu, Sukkot as a joyous holiday. We have Pesach, miracle after miracle after miracle happening to us. And yet, what takes center stage when it comes to joy? Purim, a rabbinical holiday. So commentators have asked this question: why? Why did Purim have this success and overtook Pesach, which should have really been the height of joy? Right. I mean, think that's when we became a people. That's when we had Moses, a great leader. Okay, there was Mordechai also was a great leader, but he's not Moses. Moses is a great leader. We have so many good things happening. Not only one, we fight for one time and win a war. Here it's over. The answer is because during the time of Pesach, like you had mentioned, all of this was supernatural. Yeah. Supernatural has a little effect on your being. We know, we'll talk about this maybe in a different podcast, but miracles are good markers. They're not life changers. Right. They're not. So the Jews seeing all of these miracles in Egypt are now beginning to start to have a greater faith in God, but it's all done for them. Everything is done for them. The wars are fought for them. They do nothing. I mean, if you think about the Jews in Egypt, they wait. As soon as the first plague comes, their servitude is over. They don't work a whole year. Things are going good. The guy taps the water, it turns blood. I tap the water, it turns into fresh, cool water. Okay. Like everybody, all my neighbors have frogs in their house. Me, frogless home, a frogless home. Everybody has wild beasts running through their dining room. Me, not even a cat coming into the house. Nothing, a dog, not even a nothing, coming into the house. So everything is done for them.
Right.
Purim, on the other hand, the Jews had to literally sit in fear and terror a whole year, repented, said they were sorry. The children would not. There was darkness. At the end of this darkness came the light.
Right.
Now, light, when you put it compared to the sun, is nothing. If you put a candle next to the sun, doesn't do anything for you. Doesn't do anything. That was Pesach. Pesach was a great marker. We came out of Egypt. God took us out of Egypt. Miraculous things happened to the Jews. But it wasn't internalized.
Right.
Purim is internalized. We were sitting there. We can feel what the Jews of Shushan and the other provinces felt. There was tremendous terror and darkness throughout that entire year. We didn't know what's going to happen. I mean, they were going to destroy us. So what do we have to do? Our relationship with God has to be completely changed. We prayed harder. We worked harder. We were kinder. We were more sympathetic a whole year. We did whatever we had to do. Mordechai led 22,000 children in prayer, and study and all of that. Then the miracle came. When you have light coming from darkness, that's really, you appreciate the light. And that's why Purim superseded Pesach and Sukkot as being the number one holiday where we can actually relate to and do and say, as a matter of fact, it even goes a little step further. It says on Purim, they actually accomplished the end story to the giving of the Torah, because the giving of the Torah, there's an episode where God lifts up the mountain and holds it over the Jews and said, if you don't take the Torah, I drop the mountain. Okay, so given those circumstances, I think, okay, we're taking the Torah. Okay, so there's always been this claim, the Jews accepted the Torah, under duress. Came Purim, they said, no, we accept full-heartedly whatever was in the Torah. So Purim kind of sealed that idea of us being dedicated to the Torah.
Jay, did you grow up celebrating Purim? What was that?
Oh yeah. In Hebrew school, we did Purim, and
it's all fun, man. It's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun. We put on masks.
It's a great kids holiday.
It's a tremendous kids holiday. You boo Haman. I remember one time in 770, you could imagine with the Rebbe reading the Megillah. He didn't read the Megillah, but he was there in Megillah reading. The Rebbe came in, the room is packed. And Haman comes, the kids were in the bleachers letting off firecrackers and this and that. And the gabbais that were standing on the bima that were in charge of leading it were screaming, shh, to the children, shh. Okay, the whole time, shh. Okay, the next Saturday came along, the Rebbe was from bringing. He says, I don't understand what was going on Purim. The gabbais were trying to shush the children who were booing Haman. The kids were looking at the gabbais like they were Haman. He says, why were they trying to shush them when the kids are trying to drown at Haman? Why were the gabbais? So he took the side of the kids. He said, this is what it's all about. It's about the booing of the Haman. Why are you shushing them? Why are you trying to quiet them?
I have to say that Purim has changed a lot for me the last couple of years, because for many, many years when I had little kids, Purim was, for weeks before, I was planning everyone's costumes and getting all the food ready for the gifts, because we would match. The Orthodox world is insane when it comes to Purim. And I mean, the family has to have matching costumes, and then your gifts of food that you're giving out to the community has to match your costume, right? So it has to all be a theme. So like one year, my kids were all Patriot players, and Baruch and I dressed up as referees, and we had like little football bags with all football related candies. And so but this took like weeks of planning, right? And people go absolutely insane. I mean, you can see whole families, 7, 8, 9 kids with matching costumes with their parents, and the excitement in our home. I I can't even describe it, because like I had it as a kid for myself, and then I did it for my kids, right? Where, 2 weeks before, make a list. Who are you giving shalach manos to? Then there was always a fight. I don't want to give everyone in the class. I only want to give my 5 friends. No, you're giving everyone in the class. No, there was always this fight, and then preparing it, and the house becomes just a zoo. But it was so, I missed that in a way, because I was just telling my husband last night, I'm like, it's so weird. We don't have to get anyone costumes. I'm not making shalach manos for anyone, because my kids are not, they're not giving. They'll make their own, basically. And
can I make a costume recommendation that you and Goldie and your mom, and you'll have to find a tall person to do it. You should go as the Golden Girls.
That's great.
That would be fun.
That would be good. That's good.
But your challenge, you're gonna have to find a tall woman, which I know is not
so funny.
I tell you, it's amazing. It's really amazing. It gives the kids a lot. We happened to be just a few years ago so you imagine this is in the United States. Now, I want to transport you to Israel for a moment.
Yeah.
So in Israel, it's a completely different story. As much as we here are into it and it's great and it's wonderful, we run around, in Israel literally takes over the entire country, Purim. So we were there just a week or two before Purim, and my son Moshe is literally running from store to store looking for costumes. He has 6 kids. And it's incredible, because everything's sold out.
Right.
I mean, if you don't buy it around Sukkot's time, like, it's sold out. So my granddaughter wanted to go as a princess, had to go as a prince or something. You know what I mean? Everybody, an astronaut here and there, and literally the entire country is overwhelmed with Purim.
Do we get dressed up because Hashem is hidden in the story, and we're like concealing?
That's part. That's
why do we get dressed up?
We're dressed up because of happiness.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's the
Just
joy.
to make it fun.
It's joy. It's fun. It's happiness.
Right.
We put a mask because the mask it's concealed.
Right.
It says, how do we know Esther from the Torah? Where is the word Esther found in the Torah? So it says, Haster Aster Panai. I will conceal my face.
Right.
So, that's why you put on a mask.
Right.
And, but a mask, everybody's happy. It's joyous. It's, it's
so I was gonna
something else. And if you're not joyous, then if for some odd reason, let's say you're a curmudgeon, I mean, you're just one of these people that just hate Purim. You're like the Jewish Scrooge. Okay, you just absolutely hate Purim. You don't want kids coming to your house giving you.
And just so everyone knows, Scrooge was not Jewish.
Yeah.
So,
not Jewish.
Exactly.
Not Jewish. So you're one of these people that we all know people like this, right? They're just unhappy people. They just hate fun. They want to outlaw everything. They just don't like anything. So the Torah says, the code of Jewish law, that Chayv Adam, a person is responsible to celebrate on Purim, and till the point of not knowing the difference between blessed is Mordechai and cursed is Haman. Now, it doesn't say you have to drink Johnny Walker or anything, but how do you get to that stage? Of course, you have to say a little L'chaim. So even this curmudgeon is absolutely forced to, on Purim, do something, because if he does it, then he hasn't fulfilled his obligation. And even this curmudgeon, is very, very, very careful about, making sure that he does everything right. So even this curmudgeon also has to break a smile, on Purim. That's the effect on Purim. And there's actually a part
drinking.
There's actually a part of the Megillah. There's a certain tune that we sing, the Megillah. And then there's a part where Mordechai is sad and he hears about the decree. We switch it to the tune of Eicha, which we read on Tisha B'Av. It's a sad refrain, So someone made a joke, and this is only a joke, that why do we have this sad refrain on? So even the Misnagdim, the opponents of Hasidim were generally curmudgeons. They should also be happy. They get also a part in the Megillah.
This is for our friend Zach, who pointed out that we don't mention Litvaks enough on this podcast.
So here's a Litvak
me this week that we don't mention Litvaks enough. So here we go.
So the Litvaks are happy when we read the part about Mordechai putting on the sackcloth. That's for you, Litvaks. That's for you, Litvaks. But drinking has become a common thread, and I have to just point out that's very, very dangerous. That a teenager should not drink. The Rebbe was very, very much against teenagers drinking or young people drinking in excess. If you want to, under the supervision of your father or your grandfather, to say a little l'chaim, but just a drop or 2 or 3, maybe that's okay. But this idea of teenagers and young people just getting plastered and getting drunk for no reason, this is absolutely forbidden from the Torah. This has nothing to do with Purim. It's absolutely nothing to do with Purim. This is this is something that we adults have to also monitor and make sure that that doesn't happen. I mean, if an adult wants to, yes, that's up to him. You do what you have to do. You're in charge of yourself. But teenagers and young people, please be careful and don't drink. Because what happens is you drink and you do stupid things, and then you drive, and God forbid something happens. So please, do everything according to the code of Jewish law.
That's our public service announcement for this episode.
Yes, exactly. And it was brought to you from MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
So, I think the most well-known tradition as part of this holiday are the groggers. They're used to drown out Haman's name. So where does that tradition come from, and why is it done?
Well, it's done in order for us, of course, to boo out Haman. The more noise, the better. I'm assuming, I can't tell you this for certain, but I'm assuming this is an Eastern European creation, that, they found that something that like that, and a grogger makes noise, like a grogger is a noise maker, what it is, and that's how we got instituted, first rudimentary with the pieces of wood, banging against each other, then we got smarter and put grooves in them, and then we got tin, and now we have these foghorns that people bring in,
apps on their phone,
and they have apps on their phones right now. But groggers, I know. No, but groggers are probably a Eastern European invention, where it comes from. But someone could look it up and tell us exactly where the first grogger came from.
It reminds me of like the traditions at the Seder that we do because we want the kids to ask questions and to be involved. I mean, it really gives the kids a sense of purpose during the reading of the Megillah. They're paying attention because they're waiting for the next Haman, and so like it's just a good way of educating kids to be involved. In what's going on.
But groggers today, I have to say, are less and less.
Yeah,
I mean, because they're like, like when I was a kid, groggers were big. I mean, everybody had to have a grogger, and we were also able to have a cap gun. Today, this doesn't exist anymore. If you remember that, Jay. No, this was. You remember cap guns, right?
I had an arsenal of cap guns.
You put caps in it and you'd shoot and it would make a big sound. We even some bold guys were able to get firecrackers, which are really loud but dangerous. Yeah. But they would in our shul they would light the firecrackers and drop them on the floor, and it was lucky that the old people didn't have heart attacks. It was like boom, like today you couldn't do this because it's illegal. It's illegal. But groggers are on their way out because they're so simple, and we can't have simple. We have to come in like who knows what with a bomb, in the on your rap.
Can I bring up a point that just bothers me?
No.
I'm going to anyway.
So why do you ask permission?
I don't know. So there's been an attempt to retell the story of Vashti in the last, I don't know, maybe 25 years. Vashti and the Megillah, as far in traditional Judaism, Vashti is considered evil, terrible. The rabbis say she was, mean to the Jewish women. She mistreated them. She was the daughter of Nebuchadnezzar, who was the king the granddaughter, who destroyed the temple. I mean, she was not a good person. And so when she gets killed by Achashverosh for not coming to the party, I mean, it's not a sad story, but there's been
we're happy.
Right. We're happy. But there's been this attempt in Jewish circles to make Vashti a feminist hero and turn her into like a woman who stands up to her husband and, she doesn't take orders and blah, blah, blah. And I just think it's so unhelpful to the story of Purim. Like, I don't know why we have to grasp at these straws to turn, an evil person into a heroine when we have an actual female heroine in the story. And the book is actually named after the female heroine. And there's a million things you could say about Esther to teach us different,
but not to these radicals.
But
Esther's exactly the opposite.
I'm not judging.
She acquiesces. Esther is meek.
Esther is not. She's not at all.
No, but think about it. Right. When Mordechai first approaches her, she says, "Oh no, I can't go because the king won't let me in." She's uncertain about herself. She doesn't have any. She's not bold. Vashti is bold. Vashti tells him, forget it.
Yeah.
I'm not coming. So to these radicals, someone that only acquiesces, Ahasuerus says, what can I do for you? The best she could come up with is, take me to dinner.
Right.
And buy me.
Well, that's Jewish people.
She saved. But that's a side. Who cares about the Jewish people? I mean, that's not their agenda. Their agenda is not saving the Jewish people. The people that make Vashti into a heroine, their agenda is not saving the Jewish people because they don't care about the Jewish people. They care about feminism, radical feminism. Right. That Esther was a feminist in her own way. That she was a queen and regal and royal and all of this, and purported herself in a royal way. That's garnished. Who's our hero? Someone with a tail.
But if you think about if you think about the idea of the hero's journey, right, and one of the big parts of the hero's journey is that they are able to overcome their weaknesses.
Yes,
right.
Yes,
and that's from King David to Luke Skywalker to Frodo. I mean, all these people are unexpected heroes. Yeah. And so just doing what you're born to do is not hard. Yeah. But overcoming your weaknesses, that's what a hero does.
Yeah.
Now, Jay, that perfect, a beautiful explanation of, we see a transformation in Esther. We're starting off as, meek, slow, nothing good, none that we don't hear about her. Then all of a sudden becomes bold, strong, affirmative. And you're exactly correct, Jay. You know what? We see in her a transformation of being this weak person, unsure of herself, to taking, and only afterwards she becomes the spokesperson. She tells she tells Ahasuerus, this is what we're going to do, and that's what we're going to do. So it was a great point.
One of the nicest explanations I've ever seen, I think it's from the Rabbi actually, but I could be wrong, about why it's called the Book of Esther and not Mordechai. Right? It could have been called the Book of Mordechai. I think the Rebbe explains that when it came time for them to get ready for Esther to go to the king and reveal herself and tell him, the plot, Mordechai says, let's pray. Right before you do it, we're going to pray, and Esther wants them to. Right. Esther says, let's pause. We're going to fast
for me,
and
pray for me,
pray, whatever. But Mordechai assumes that it means he should pray and Esther should pray. Esther is the one who says, I need every Jew in the kingdom to pray together. We need total unity. It's going to take the kids, the men, the women, everyone together. God is going to listen to our prayers if we're all united. It's not just going to be the elites sitting in the palace who are going to make this a successful mission, right? Everybody together. And I think about that a lot because who am I, right? I'm not like, I don't run any big whatever. I'm not like an important Jew. I'm barely, my father would say I'm barely religious.
No, you're an important Jew. What are you talking about?
Fine.
Last night at the Shiva, they were referring to you as the Queen of Long Beach.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
Brian, your friend, Brian says, ChayaLeah is the Queen of Long Beach. Wow. Shlomit is the princess. But ChayaLeah is the queen.
Really?
That's what he said.
This whole podcast was worth it just for this little
Of course, Brian is, who's Brian? I mean, no one knows Brian.
Whatever.
No, Brian is a great guy. I love Brian.
The point is that we often think that we're a nobody and we're not important, and we have to leave our salvation to the rabbis or to the scholars or to the, I don't know. But really, Hashem wants all of us to play our part in the redemption of the Jewish people, and we all have a part to play. We can't ignore it.
And especially, just to add what you were saying, ChayaLeah, which is wonderful, is that Mordechai also realized that it's going to take the kids.
Yeah,
we never really think about the kids. First thing he does is he gathers together the kids and teaches them Torah, and the kids proclaim, we are with you, Mordechai, through life and death. Yeah. We don't care, Mordechai. We're with you. Whatever you tell us to do, whatever you do, we are going to be standing by you shoulder to shoulder. These are the kids that are saying this. And Mordechai, once he saw that, then he knew already, you know what? We're okay. We're going to be in good shape. If the kids are going to be like this and they're willing to go, self-sacrifice for the sake of Judaism, we're okay. We'll make it.
There's one other part of the story that you mentioned earlier, Rabbi, that I think is very prescient for today's world, which is when Mordechai tells Esther that if you think you're going to be safe because you're where you are, you're sorely mistaken.
Totally.
And if you look at the history of all Judaism, I mean, whether it's the the Spanish Inquisition, or whether it's, the Holocaust, or, wherever it is, Jews were not safe just because they were in some perceived perch somewhere.
Right.
Exactly.
And so just trying to hide out because you think you're going to be safe is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
To me, that is
so true.
That is maybe the most important part. The whole story is important, but to me, those sentences where he tells her that, you know what, Esther, you could think that you're going to be in the palace and you're there. Make no mistake. There's many agents God could have, and someone else is going to do it. We're going to be okay. Someone else will do it, but you should know that it was for this very moment that you were chosen to do this. And that's, I think, the most dramatic part of the entire. I love that. I love hearing those words from him, because you know what happens. It's very interesting, because what happens right afterwards, she changes. I mean, which tells us that she already had the potential inside of her. She already was that bold person, that courageous woman that comes out later. All she needed was a little bit of prodding.
Yeah.
All she needed was just for someone just to clarify to her and put it into perspective. Hey, look, you're looking at it through wrong glasses. Put on clear glasses and you will see that I am right. So we know that God already had created the remedy before the illness. Means he put Esther in place before Haman shows up. And this is generally the rule of thumb, that, you know what, we already have within ourselves this tremendous reservoir of courage, and of faith. All sometimes it needs is someone to reveal it to us, just to say to us, hey, you know what, you have it, do it, you can do it, you'll be successful. Just don't hesitate. Go out there and take care of business.
Which is also always part of the hero story.
Right.
Whether it's Samuel, whether it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, whether it's
Moses,
the guy Moses, the guy in Lord of the Rings. What's the sorcerer's name?
Gandalf.
Gandalf. So there's always that character.
As if I read it. Wow.
No, it's good. It's good.
You talked to Brother Levi. That's why
my son
Shimshon.
But it's another part of the hero story. Is there's someone who brings that out of the hero.
Just FYI, the only reason I know the name Gandalf is because my kids dressed up as him for Purim a few years ago.
There you go.
So it comes full circle how I know that.
No, but this is a recurring theme, over and over again. We even see it in the Bible as well, in the Torah, where, when the spies come back from Israel, they give a bad report. We're never going to be able to vanquish the indigenous people. They're much stronger. Next thing you know, God is angry and Moses screams at them. The next day they wake up, they're ready to go to war. Now, what happened? Yesterday, you said we're never going to be able to defeat them. Today, you're willing to go up to war. Moses then says, don't go because it's not going to help you. But what it tells us is that they already had within themselves this potential of going to war, but they were misled by the spies. All it took to reveal this was Moses rebuking them and God rebuking them. But then, of course, it was too late to go to fight. Mm-hmm. But that's been a common theme throughout the Torah, where you have, like you said, guys who, I don't know if, can I, very few guys are born like Samson. Okay, right. The moment you see him, the guy's already killing people.
Right.
The first scene of the thing opens up, he's taking out 7 Philistines.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the opening scene, of it. But most of the heroes are, who am I? What am I? I can't be. I'm a reluctant prophet. I don't know how to speak. And
I have a question that is a little dark, but I sometimes have a hard time with the story of Purim as it relates to other tragedies in Jewish history, like the Holocaust, because it's like we celebrate these things as victories. And I guess there's a way to think about the Holocaust in a sense as a victory. I mean, we survived, right? And we rebuilt ourselves. And so it's a victory. But what do we do with like all the pain and death and suffering that happened? I mean, because during the story of Purim, we have that too. I mean, Jews died during that story. We kind of gloss over it, don't we? Or I don't know. How do we deal with that part of it?
Look, with the Holocaust, as with all other tragedies, there's 2 ways. If you wallow in it, and think to yourself, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Yes.
then you'll never be able to extricate yourself from this.
Right.
You're going to be so tangled up in this morass, or
Sadness.
the earth. I'm thinking of quicksand. You'll just be buried in quicksand. You're never going to be able to get out of it, because there is no good answer for what happened over here.
Right.
Or you say to yourself, look, you know what? We survived. My father was born. My father says my parents survived. There's a purpose why they survived. I'm not going to allow all of this darkness to cloud and to disrupt me, because it doesn't get anywhere. Right. Doesn't take us anywhere. So I would say the same thing about it when it comes to the Holocaust and Purim. You know how many Purim stories there were during the Holocaust?
Right.
When how many people were saved miraculously during the Holocaust? So you could, and I feel with you, because every time I hear a story where, when my grandfather was the 12th, they were picking 11 guys that day to go into the chambers, and my grandfather was the 12th. It was a great miracle. Right. And I say, what about the other 11 guys? Right. How come a miracle didn't happen to them? But that's not really a fair assessment of it. Right. What is, I should celebrate. Well, look, thank God that your grandfather made it, and your grandfather had children, and you're here. But I feel for you. But the reality is, we could feel that, and then we have to move on.
Right.
That has been our, listen, we've lived through October 7th. You can wallow in October 7th and wonder how. Right. I mean, how could this happen after the Holocaust? I mean, there's one little state of Israel, one small little it's nothing. It's less than Rhode Island. Rhode Island is bigger than Israel.
Not quite. Probably.
No, it's about the size of Rhode Island. Israel.
No, it's like New Jersey.
It's New Jersey. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Rhode Island is as big as the Lakewood Mall.
Okay. All right. It's as big as New Jersey, And why? Why can't they just leave us alone? And 1,200 people, innocent people, men, women, children, brutally murdered. So you could, is anybody gonna say anything to you or criticize you if you wallow in this darkness? Okay, want to wallow? No, wallow, but we don't, and Israel isn't. Israel knows, hey, you know what? We got to move on. There's another day that we have to live. Right. The sun is going to rise tomorrow. All I need to do is keep my eyes on the prize, mourn for the 1,200, work on the hostages, but at the very same time know that we have a job that we need to do, strengthen ourselves, do what we have to do. We'll take the hits, because that's part of who we are, but we're not going to turn back. Right. That's how we've lived, and that's how we've survived through the Inquisition, the pogroms, the Crusades. I mean, you name it, we've been there. They've thrown everything at us. And we're still here, and we will continue to be here, because we've taken this kind of an attitude that it's Purim. Yeah, we survived, and we'll keep trucking.
Wow. Yeah. True. We didn't really clarify the pimple thing, which I don't want to leave people hanging on that.
So why don't you go into the pimple thing? Because obviously this has been on your mind.
No, I mean, it's just funny that as kids we're taught that Vashti didn't come to the party because she had over 100 pimples on her face and she grew a tail. That's what we were taught. And I don't know, is that in the Talmud? I mean, where does that come from?
It comes from the Medrash. Yes, it does.
Oh, it's actually in the Medrash? Yes, I thought it was...
No, you think someone made it up in mind? Like,
I thought so.
Is someone in 1849, someone came up with Vashti had a tail. No. First of all, you have to understand something. We've talked about this a number of times, and in the Torah, there are no accountants. Right. There's no middlemen. Right. There's no like a guy like a dip. Like
there's no narrator.
There's no what?
There's not an. Are you saying like there's no narrator?
No. Oh. I want to talk about there's no color of. There's no flavor called vanilla. Okay. There's no flavor. Right. You're either a superhero or a super villain. Right. Okay. Haman is definitely a super villain. Mordechai is a superhero. Esther is a superhero. Right. Vashti just can't be this woman that I'm not coming. Why aren't you coming? Because I don't want to come. No. We have to place upon her the worst. She's not just bad, mean. Like, what? She screams at you if you bring her tea not at a 200-degree temperature. No. She has pimples. Yes. God punishes her. It makes us feel better. You see, you get your just desserts. Right. You get pimples now. You always fashioned yourself as being so beautiful. Now you're not beautiful and you have a tail. Ha ha.
Right.
Who has a tail? Vashti has a tail.
That's how we were. I mean, that's
So that's part of.
Yeah.
Look at the entire Torah. There's no one. I mean, King David is not just a regular king like King Charles. He goes to opening, cuts the ribbon, smiles.
No.
Goes to Africa with gives the black baby some chocolate. Like that. Oh God, okay, wonderful. Great. King David is like a superhero. Solomon is not only smart.
Yeah,
Solomon
smartest.
He hears the language of the birds. Solomon could understand what the birds are talking about. It's not regular people.
So you're saying no nuance in the Torah.
There's no vanilla.
Yeah.
There's no like I'm thinking about like a bureaucrat. A bureaucrat.
Right,
There's no bureaucrats. There's either Judah Maccabee or Hitler.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where you're stemming from. There's no like guy walking with a briefcase one day and then he sits in the subway and he all of a sudden who's a son? It's Daniel.
You're right.
It's Daniel. It's not some schmo just standing around there. It happens to be Daniel. Abraham doesn't go through tests. He goes through the ultimate test of killing your kid. That's not something it's not like, like I found $10 on the floor. Do I have to give it back to its owner?
I know. It's true.
So did we have
what are you dressing up as this year?
Who?
You.
Who, me?
No.
I'm dressing up as the president. The president.
As Trump?
The president, whoever's the president at the time of Purim, I'll dress up.
Oh my God.
Could be Trump, could be Biden, could be Washington president. Some president could be Lincoln. I'm gonna go on stilts.
We've
to walk like Lincoln.
Are you dressing up, ChayaLeah?
Probably. We're doing a pirate themed Purim at Hillel, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that means, but
what is that like?
I don't know.
Chivalry Chimbers.
The cutest thing, if you
what does it go there?
I don't know. But the cutest thing, I'll link
Castoy
it. We have to add this, Jay, when you do the Substack for this episode. The cutest Purim picture ever is a family in Mea She'arim, which is the most ultra religious neighborhood in Jerusalem,
ghetto.
And probably in the world, I'd have to say. There's a family, there's about 8 children and the 2 parents, and they are all wearing Santa Claus outfits with long payas and with and it's because they probably don't know what it is, and they probably saw it on discount at a store, and they're all dressed as Santa Clauses, and it's the cutest picture in the world because you just see the innocence of the family, and you just understand like the cultural context of what's happening in that picture. Because if they knew what that was, there is no chance that they will dress up like that.
If you send me the image, I will make it the image for the episode.
Exactly. And I guess one last thing before we go, I mean, I feel like we should mention is 18 years ago on Purim, my grandfather passed away actually on Purim itself, on the holiday. And it was kind of befitting for him in many ways because he was all about, we've talked about him before with his charity, and my grandfather Shimshin, who ran the charity in Crown Heights for all the poor people. And his personality was always a big, he had a huge personality. And so on Purim night, he passed away 18 years ago. So that was a strange Purim for us, and has been ever since, kind of, in a way. But he would have wanted us to. I love when people say that. They would have wanted us to celebrate and be happy and eat.
That is true. That is true.
It is.
So, I guess on a happier note, though, I don't think we mentioned that you guys have another baby in the family, right?
Yes.
Thank God.
Razel.
Yes. A new girl.
Yes, little Razel. Girl in the family.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're coming. It's like a machine gun now with the with the Perlmutter family.
Thank God. We're never going to complain about that.
Absolutely.
Last night I had a new great niece in Australia.
Mazel tov. Yeah. Mazel tov.
I know I have a lot to do with raising her, but
yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, happy Purim, everyone.
Happy Purim.
Yes,
Make
happy
sure to
Purim.
Go to shul. Make sure to celebrate the Purim holiday and
give gifts of food to friends and give charity.
Give charity.
Have a fun meal. And if you don't have anything going on, every Chabad everywhere in the world is hosting a Purim party and is open to everyone. And so just look up your local Chabad and go. You don't have to be religious. You don't have to be Orthodox. You don't have to know anything, but they will be happy to welcome you in for Purim.
If you're listening to this and you go to West Bay Chabad in Rhode Island, you'll see me there.
Oh, wow.
There you go. There's a treat.
If Purim itself wasn't a benefit enough of going,
yeah,
that's
that is.
Are you getting dressed up?
We'll see. Maybe.
Okay. You hate fun. You're not getting dressed up. Okay.
Yeah, I do hate fun. All right.
Bye,
See you, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.